Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Twilight Zone. Okay, listen. Um, Couple things I want to announce, and we're going to put it in the announcements too, so that you don't tell me like 10 days from now. I never got that. Okay, number one, you need to call me to talk to me. I'm going to start dropping people today. Okay. Doesn't mean you necessarily, but does mean people that show up to the Zoom things with X's all over their phones and whatever they're using. I need to be able to know it's you. If you come to class with a paper bag over your head, I can't guess who you are. So there's got to be a way that you can talk to me every week. Okay. But I am going to start dropping people today. So if I don't think you're there, call me once a week. You've got my number, 760-963-0943. Okay, give me a call. Just let me know you're there. All right. Talk to me for a couple of minutes. Let me check in, make sure everything's okay. All right. Then I know you're still there. All right. Now, I will do a quick Zoom tonight at 6 p.m. That's 1,800 hours for all of you that are in the military or about to go into the medical field because a lot of facilities use military time. Okay, so you need to get used to a 24-hour clock, military time. Okay. Um, for those of you who are still confused with that, go out, look at the sun. When it starts to set a little bit, you're probably right on. All right, now, a couple of people have called me regarding the films that I recommended, okay, that you do the 3-page paper on. And this is just a recommendation. Most of them, guys, are on prejudice. And there's still a lot of that going on in the medical field today. There's people that shouldn't even be out there. I probably, on occasion, shouldn't be out there because, my mindset is not great at times. So, but this isn't unprejudiced. I was in the military. I try very hard not to do that kind of stuff. Do I see it creeping up every once in a while? I think everybody does, but you got to try not to. So you got to treat everybody like you would want to be treated. It means you got to treat everybody like a family member, okay? Like you're treating them like you would want to be treated if you were there. And your race, your color, your religion, what you just did in the last 24 hours doesn't have a lot to do with anything about the way you're treated, or at least, watch, it shouldn't. Okay. The films that I suggested are 3 for prejudice. Okay. Once you watch them, you watch one of them, watch it, write a 3-page type paper. Yes, you can double space it, and tell me in the future how long or what is it in the film that you can utilize, right, to take with you so that prejudice doesn't come up. What did you see in the film that kind of stuck out to you, that sounds good to you, that you can use? The 3 films: Remember the Titans, true story, all of these are true, okay? About a high school football team, okay, that had to deal with this. Another one, Radio, Radio, okay? Radio is a great one, also a true story, dealing with how people used to deal with, and how they still do, deal with prejudice. And Something the Lord Hath Made, okay, which is about doctors starting out in the 1940s, yeah, okay, and also dealing with prejudice, okay, and they're all great films. All you gotta do is watch one, type a 3-page paper, tell me how it can affect you. Tell me what you learned from it. Now, the other thing I'm getting, and this is several times I got this, was from individuals The other thing I'm getting is people have called recently, and the names and places have been changed to obviously protect the innocent. But no, you called and you said, "Well, I don't feel I'm doing really good," and I'll say why. This is just even a recent one. Well, my grades weren't that good on the last test or something. And I go, "Well, what were they?" Well, they were an 80 out of 100. Guys, you can't do any better than that. I mean, maybe you could, but that's a good grade. And so many of you are focused on what your grade is. Is it an A, B, C, D, F? What is it? Do you realize that doesn't have a lot to do with what you know and how you can deal with clinical situations and patients? It really doesn't. Okay. It deals with number one, your attitude towards your grade, and you're elevating your grade above everything else. And like I said, I've got C students that can run circles around A students. In fact, a girl a while, back, many years ago, said, she followed me all the way to the parking lot. She goes, "I'm not a B student, I'm an A student." And I said, "What does that mean to you? What does an A mean over a C or whatever?" She goes, "Well, an A means you're superior." And I go, "According to who? Okay, superior in what?" Years ago, I got invited to a UCLA conference, and it was deans of medical schools who were talking about how would I pick you to come into my medical school. And one of them said, "This is a question I'd ask you." He goes, um, if if I gave you $6 million, right? How would you go about eliminating noise in your city, in your neighborhood? Now, what is it? Hello, what does that have to do with medicine? Unless you're going into otology or something. I mean, I don't know. He goes, "We want to see how you think. Can you utilize basic information that's been presented to you in your classes and your studies, and utilize those to function?" You know what it's called? Critical thinking. Okay. So you need to be able to think critically. You need to be able to figure things out, kind of. Not too long ago, I had a friend who has a master's degree in nursing. He was looking over his clinical students, right? And one of the patients of the clinical student was intubated, had a tube down, yeah? And the blood pressure was through the ceiling. You could see it on the monitor above the bed. So he says to the student, now this is a student, "Tell me something about your patient." This is the question. Here's a student. "My patient right now is doing okay." Excuse me? They're intubated. They're on a breathing machine. He goes, "Well, you remember what I said about blood pressure?" And this was a student again. "Yeah, blood pressure, and it is through the ceiling on the monitor above the bed. Yeah, blood pressure. When I do a blood pressure, I like to take it myself." So, we went a little further to see if the student may just be having a bad day. And we said, "Well, what did the nurse say about your student?" The nurse didn't seem to know." Guys, hello. What does this tell you about critical thinking? You can't think your way out of a paper bag. Okay, you need to be able to do that. Okay. You want to get a real lesson on this? Critical thinking? Go watch the hospital movie again. Okay. With the guy, what's the guy's name, Peggy, that takes Vicodin and, huh? House. That's a good one. Remember House? Kind of an old one. Walks around with a cane, right? An MD. Remember when he goes up to the board and he starts listing stuff on the board? That's critical thinking. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. Now, how about talking about your own self-image? Okay. And I gave you a couple things on this. A lot of you have low self-images, and you're letting that push you down, keep you from doing what you're supposed to do. Now, I think everybody has a purpose here. Okay? And their purpose isn't to live for X amount of years and then go out of existence. I mean, that's my personal feeling, but, we'll just kind of leave it at that. But I'm just saying, you have a purpose. There's a reason you're here. Okay? And it's not just to let time waste away. Somebody said a long time ago, choose life. Only that and always. And at whatever risk. To let life leak out, to let it wear away by just the mere passage of time, to withhold giving it, to withhold spending it, is to choose nothing. Okay. Now think about that. There was a guy not too long ago, well, maybe it was a little bit long ago, but he had these same feelings, about himself. Probably didn't do good, didn't get a good grade on the test, whatever. I want to read you about this guy just for a second, really quick. 1832, he lost his job for state legislature. 1833, he failed in business. 1835, his sweetheart died. That's a good one. 1836, he had a nervous breakdown. 1838, he was defeated for Speaker. 1843, he was defeated for nomination for Congress. 1848, he lost re-nomination. 1849, he was rejected for land officer. This guy sounds like he needs a little Prozac on the side, Zoloft, Paxil, whatever. 1854, he was defeated for the U.S. Senate. 1856, he was defeated for nomination for vice president. 1858, again defeated for U.S. Senate. 1860, elected President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. Guys, how much lower can you get in self-esteem? And this guy turned out okay, didn't he? I mean, he's got a big seat in Washington, D.C. It overlooks everything. Yeah? Ever want to see a great place? Go there. Go there. My first place that I went when my wife and we went to Washington, Arlington National Cemetery. Before we left, where we ended up? Arlington National Cemetery. There's a lot of stuff you can see there, including President Kennedy's grave. The one with the eternal flame on it. A lot of stuff, a lot of history. Right by there, not too far from it, okay, is the Vietnam Memorial. We live in a different time. We live in a different world. A lot of things that you can realize. People, men and women and children, have paid a price. So we can sit here today and talk about HP laptop computers and distant education on videos. But it's just not a right, it's a privilege. Okay. And they paid the price. All right. The extra credit, 10 points, real simple. Desert Valley Hospital is still taking this. Okay, Peggy, can you give me that email again? Hey, Peg? April's email? Look how my wife helped me out today. Guys are always like that. Where's my keys? What do I do with my shoes? Where's my cell phone? I don't do it. It's just somebody else I'm talking about. Not me. April's email at the hospital. Capital A, SCHAFER at primehealthcare.com. Okay. If you guys heard, there was a guy, just send them an email. Tell the nurses, tell the staff, tell the doctors, tell the janitors, tell everybody that keeps that hospital, man. I don't care who they are. Thank you for what you're doing. You know, there was a guy yesterday, didn't get everything, just heard it kind of on the news on the side. He went out and he took $900 of his money. He went over and went to a gas station down below. He stood out in front with signs. He goes, nurses, doctors, EMTs, police officers, I will pay your gas bill today. And you know what? People came up and they donated money to him. It's the thank you. And like, you're going, yeah, but they probably get thanked a million times over. No, they don't. I already know that. No, they don't. When you are thanked, you feel like your purpose, remember, your life is worth it. You're doing okay. All right. And that's still going on. That can be done up till the last day. I don't care. Okay. But make sure you send that in. And then in your notebook, and that's another thing, I'm going to get on Zoom, FaceTime, something. I'm going to communicate with you individually, and I'm going to go around. I'm going to go, okay, show me your notebook. Just show me your notes. Kind of go like this, yeah. If you're reaching out and touching somebody, AT&T, yeah. Okay. Show me your main workbook, EKG workout by Jane Huff. Show me that you filled in all the strips. Now, you don't have to go slow. Yeah, this is AT&T. Reach out, show me. All strips filled in. That's good. Not the ones, okay, on the pacemakers. You're going to leave those out. Learn those later. All right. Show me your 3-page type paper, right? On one of these movies I showed you. Who knows? I may even have you read it to me. There's not a lot of people I got to go through. I think we have 23 students left, which is good, which is really good. I'm so proud of you guys. I don't say that, so I can get my paycheck next week. I'm just proud of you. Okay, I'm proud of the progress you've made. Okay? Hang in. Don't quit. You know how many times Edison tried the light bulb before it finally worked? 10,000 times. And a reporter came up to him one day and they said, well, you failed 10,000 times. So he goes, no, I didn't. I just learned 10,000 ways it wouldn't work. Get it? You're not failing. You're just going forward. You're moving. Okay. You know what? I hope 2 years from now, not too many years. Don't wait too long. Okay. I hope to see you out somewhere. And you're going to go, oh, Mr. White. What am I going to do? I'm going to look at you like I know you. I'm going to go, oh my gosh, how long has it been? Some of you go, last semester. And I go, oh, yeah, I was going to say that. You're going to go, I'm in nursing now. Or I'm an EMT, or I'm a paramedic. That is everything to me. You couldn't give me a paycheck that shows me that you appreciate me more than that. What are we talking about? Your success. Okay. All right, now that we've covered all that stuff, so I'm going to call you on the notebook. When is that going to be? June 8th. Now, if you get the notebook finished before then, do me a big favor. So I don't have to take extra Prozac, Zoloft, Paxil, whatever. Antipsychotic drugs. Okay. Call me and let me know it's ready, and I'll get on FaceTime with you right then, and we'll go through it, and you get the credit. So if it's due on June 8th, but if you don't, if you have it done before then, give me a call. All past quizzes, which I'm done, June 8th. June 8th is like, in case you're counting or not counting, June 8th is like 13 days from now. You got plenty of time. Okay? We're talking about 3-page double-spaced type paper. The final, June 10th. Okay. You got 24 hours after I post the final, and I'll try to post it early, like the morning of June 10th, right? 24 hours from then to turn it in. Okay. And I can't talk to you about questions on the final. I mean, if there's something there that I screwed up on, whatever. But I don't want to talk to you then while you're doing it. I'll talk to you afterwards, but, you know. There's something called SLOs. That's Student Learning Outcomes. We're going to post those today. Okay. Now, some of the SLOs say something like, describe 20, EKGs or 20 dysrhythmias, where you talk about the cause and you talk about, how you're going to treat it. And make it real simple. I get up, I walk to the bathroom 2 blocks down the block, and my heart rate goes up. How would I treat it? I'd get indoor plumbing. No, I haven't, but I'm just saying, you get the idea. Make it simple, keep it simple. Okay? You have atrial fib. Use a beta blocker. Okay? Maybe to treat it. Okay? Okay, so just basically what is a cause, like exercising, right? Heart rate goes above 100, whatever. What is a real simple thing? And make it simple. Keep it a couple sentences, that's it, right? The other one, hold on for 1 second. Okay, here's the SLOs. Describe the physiology. Remember, anatomy is the structure of something, how something looks. Is it round? Is it oblong? The heart. Was it about the size of your fist? Where's it lie? Mediastinal space. Okay. Right? Sorry. Between the breastbone and the backbone. Yeah. Normally it's shifted downward to the left. It has 4 chambers. 2 upper ones called atrium, 2 bottom ones called ventricles. It has 4 valves. The 2 between the atrium and the ventricles are called atrioventricular valves. Go figure. And the ones between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery is called the pulmonic valve. Between the left atrium and the aorta is called the aortic valve. 4 chambers, 4 valves. What am I giving you? Anatomy, structure. Now what do I want to talk about? Not really, but just give you an example. Physiology. Physiology is function, how something works. Okay, everything starts off in the posterior wall of the right atrium, right sinoatrial node, which sends off positive electrical discharges between 60 to 100 per minute as the pacemaker of the heart. Then follow the electrical conduction system. Yeah. Okay, that's physiology. So, 20 different rhythms. Be able to choose proper treatment. I mean, if there is one, don't exercise as much, or exercise, but slowly. What? Okay. And proper treatment. What would you do? Number 2, list major causes of lethal arrhythmias and appropriate treatment. Okay. What's a lethal arrhythmia? Ventricular fibrillation. Yeah. What do you think caused it? You can't just going to look some of this stuff up. Okay, you've got books, you've got cell phones, computers. Yeah. Okay. List 20 major causes of lethal arrhythmias. Okay, and these are just the causes, not the arrhythmias. Okay. Stress, stimulants, cocaine, Coca-Cola, whatever. You do kind of Coke, I'm terrible. Okay. It causes, there's stimulants, right? Epinephrine, ephedrine used to be out in some diet pills, right? Let's cause a lot of lethal arrhythmias. And what are appropriate treatments? Well, for some of them it's pretty easy. Stop taking the cocaine. Okay. List 5 major steps used to identify an arrhythmia. Guys, those are in the beginning of your book, page 36, 37, upper right-hand column. Okay, it starts out with rhythm. Okay. Now, let me say something about that. Goes to rate, right? P wave, look at the P waves, look at the morphology. What's that mean? The size, the shape, the direction of the P waves, do they all look the same? Because in a normal rhythm, in an NSR, they should. Okay? All right. Look at the QRSs. Are they all within normal limits? 0.10 or less? Yeah. Look at the PRs, 0.12 to 0.20. Remember, like just as a reminder, if you're looking at a junctional, the PR is usually shorter. It's less than 0.12, okay, a junctional rhythm. So you got to look at that. What does this help you do? It helps you identify a rhythm. Go with your calipers, P to P. Peak of one, P to the peak of the next. You shouldn't have to move them in or out. Go R to R. The R to R should be the same thing as P to Ps. Yeah? Now, what does this do? It tells you what you're dealing with. Are you dealing with an NSR? Are you dealing with a sinus tach? Okay. Are you dealing with a junctional rhythm? Are you dealing with a ventricular rhythm, an idioventricular rhythm? Okay, what are you dealing with? Okay. And that is what you're going to give the doctor. You're not going to go, I took my calipers and went like this, and they all spaced. Doctor didn't want to know that. What do you got? I got an NSR at a rate of 70. Okay. I've got an IVR at a rate of 40. Okay. That's what he wants to know. Now, so once you give him that, real short, simple, sweet, yeah, you want to tell him, are there any depressed ST segments? Are there any elevated ST segments? How do the T waves look? Are they inverted? Can you even see them? Remember, sometimes the P in real fast rhythms gets close to the T and you just get one big bump. So you don't know whether it's a P or a T. Yeah? I mean, there's things you can do to try to guess, but so what does the doctor want at first? What is the rhythm? Not that you did all the stuff. Not you looked at the rhythm, not you use your calipers, not you looked at PR. No, no, no. What do you got? I got a first degree AV block. Okay? What's the rate? That's what you want to know. Now you can go with P's and T's and all that kind of good stuff. Bundle branch blocks and all of that. Yeah. All right. So what do you use to identify it? The rhythm? Those 5 things. How do I want this back to me? In an email. These are SLOs. They've got to be turned in every semester. I need them in an email, and I need them by the 8th. Okay, this is real simple. That's, what did I say it was? 13 days from now? Okay. 13 days, the 8th of June, coming up. Okay. So I need you to put your name, the name of the class, Basic Arrhythmia, Allied Health 83, the section number. Okay. I'm going to find that for you. It's under syllabus, but just in case you threw something away. Okay. I'm looking. Section number 73578. Wednesdays, 6 to 9, but now like 24 hours a day, whatever. Sorry for all the information. All right. Now we're going to go a step further here. Okay, we talked about believing in yourself. We talked about critical thinking skills. Okay, when you're looking at a multiple choice question, your first intuition is probably correct. You know what I see students doing every semester? And when we're in the classroom, I can't see you doing that. And they erase them. They go, how many people erase stuff on the test, and initially they got it right, your first intuition is usually correct. Don't change it unless you go, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Yeah? All right, you got the idea. Okay, quick Zoom tonight, Wednesday, okay, 1800 hours, 6 p.m. Okay, you got it? Good. All right, now we're going to do some quick lectures. Okay. Quiz 9. I'm going to tell you what to study for, and I'm also going to give you some hints for
I don't know that one.
My Alexa's talking. It's okay, Alexa, you don't have to know it. Take my basic arrhythmia. Okay. So, I get distracted really easily. All right, so I'll tell you what to study for the final. Not today, but I will. I'll tell you what to study for these two quizzes. Quiz 9 and 10 will be posted today. You have till Saturday to turn them in at about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. Got it? Questions, call me, but call me anyways. I want to hear from every one of you. Okay? If not, I don't want to drop you after all this work you did, and you don't want to drop. Too much work, too much time, too much effort here. Okay? Now, several of you are trying to get jobs, things like that in the medical field. That's good. I mean, that's excellent. Not right now, because the hospitals are not letting, you know, most of the people that do clinicals and things like that in there. And you're not doing a clinical anyways, but I'm just saying, right? Hopefully when somebody finds a cure for this COVID, we can start, reopening rather than have barbecues down the blocks. I told my friend yesterday, I said, how about if I come over and share a beer with you? Yeah, but don't worry about it. I'll wear my wetsuit, my scuba mask, my snorkel, my booties, and I'll be on my O2 tank. You think, yeah, right, Mr. White. You have no idea. At Azusa Pacific, I used to stay there in the dorms. There was a fire one night in one of the dorms. Smoke filling up. Not bad, but just, You know what I did? I put on my scuba tank and my mask and walked around and knocked on the door and said, there's a fire, you have to leave. They're going to find a diver in the hallway with a scuba mask melted to his face. What are my thinking? Most of the time I'm not, but there you go. All right. We're going to talk a little bit about axis. And number 9 deals with axis, A-X-I-S. Okay. Now, even though you've heard this word somewhere in time, I can tell you what it is real quick. Axis is the direction that depolarization is moving. You go, what is that? Remember those positive electrical signals? Positive. Coming out of the sinoatrial node and going down the electrical conduction system? Okay, from the top part of the heart to the bottom of the heart? Yeah? That's axis. The direction that those positive signals are moving. Okay? You go, well, why know that? Well, here's a good thing. Axis will point towards hypertrophy. Now, the word looks like hypertrophy, Hypertrophy, hyper, but it's almost like you do a TRA when you pronounce it. Hypertrophy, F-I, I don't know. Okay? Hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is enlargement. And there's many reasons we get enlargement of the heart. You go, well, that's good. I go, what's good? You got a big heart. No, it's not like Valentine's Day. Here's the deal. When your heart walls, the thickness, especially of your muscle, gets bigger, the heart starts to deteriorate in cardiac output. It becomes a sloppier pump. Okay, the larger it gets. Why would you get it? Well, one is hypertension. Okay. Another reason you can get hypertrophy is because of congestive heart failure. Okay. And in congestive heart failure, some of the blood starts not going forward, but going backwards. Okay. And by that, you get what's called forward failure. And forward failure is the left side of the heart, in particular, the left ventricle. The left ventricle isn't beating hard enough. Its contraction isn't hard. Okay? We call that positive chronotropic. Okay? They're not being hard enough. Okay? Not being with enough force. Okay? And blood starts to back up. Well, where's it go up to from the left ventricle? It goes up to the left atrium. Then where? It goes through the 4 pulmonary veins. And where do those go to? Back to the lungs. What is blood? 55% of blood, guys, is a straw yellow fluid called plasma. 45% of blood is something called formed elements, your blood cells. Okay, your white blood cells, your red blood cells, your platelets. Yeah. Okay, so blood starts to back up. Where? Into the lung. So what do you think you got going here? Difficulty breathing. Okay. Orthopnea. Ortho, straight. Nea, breathing. You find it difficult to breathe in a lying down position, you got to breathe in an upright position. Okay? And that's called forward failure. Left side of the heart, blood starts to back up. Not all of it, but some of it giving you problems. Okay? And then there's right-sided heart failure. What are we talking about? CHF, congestive heart failure. Blood backs up from the right ventricle to the right atrium, right, to the superior and inferior vena cava. Okay. Superior and inferior vena cava, yeah. And then what? To the neck veins. And you get what? JVD, jugular vein distension. Your neck veins stand really out. Okay. And then what? You get enlargement of the liver because blood backs up into the liver. You get hepatomegaly. Megaly means enlargement, another word for enlargement. Besides hypertrophy, megaly. Okay. You get fluid. You've probably seen fluid on their legs, their ankles. Yeah. And really bad at times. Yeah. Okay. So sometimes in order to drop a lot of this fluid, we have to give them a diuretic. Diuresis, kind of a weird way to describe some of these, but these are literal interpretation, means passing through. Okay, passing through what? Not a train going through Victorville. Okay. Diuresis is urinating. Okay. Predominantly. If you're not getting rid of a lot, we give them medication to get rid of a lot of that fluid, okay, to dump it. And we may give them digoxin, which is a negative chronotropic and a positive inotropic. Okay. Dig, negative chromo. What's chromo? Time. By chronology. Time. Negative chronotropic. It slows the heart down, and negative chronotropic, and it increases the force of contraction. Positive inotropic. All right. I'm going to have to reach for some stuff, so I may hit pause here a couple of times. That's okay with you. So what are we talking about? Axis. What is axis? The direction that the positive charges are moving in. How are they moving? Downward and to the left. Downward and to the left. Like this. Here's my right, here's my left, downward and to the left. Okay. Now, let me say something I've said before. What are we talking about? Positive charges. Moving downward, I get my, anatomy mixed up when I'm looking at myself on the screen. So anyway, downward and to the left. Yeah. Okay. As a positive charge moves towards a positive skin electrode, there is a positive upward deflection on the EKG. Say that again. As a positive charge moves towards a positive skin electrode, there is a positive upward deflection on the EKG. As a positive charge moves away from a positive skin electrode, there is a negative or downward deflection on the EKG. What are your inferior leads? Inferior, below. What I like to think of kind of like the lower half. You go below, I go below what? Okay, watch. Your inferior leads, your below leads, right, are lead 2, lead 3, and AVF, augmented voltage foot. Those are the bottom leads. Your lateral leads, and when usually we talk about the heart, we talk about left lateral. The lateral can be either side, pertaining to the side, but we talk in the heart usually predominantly about left lateral. Okay. Your lateral leads are 1, lead 1, lead 1, lead, well, let me go back. Lead 5, lead 6. Boy, maybe I'm having problems concentrating, D. I don't think my coffee's good enough. Hold on. Okay, finally got it. Crashed and burned on that one. Lead 1, AVL, augmented voltage left arm. Lead 5 and lead 6 are your lateral leads. 1, AVL, V5, V6, lateral. V1 through V4, two things. Anterior, towards the front, right? Because the heart kind of lies down like this, pointing off into the left. Okay. So, okay, V1 through V4, V1 through V4 are anterior. V1 and V2 are also lateral. Well, what lateral? Right lateral. V1 and V2 are over the right side of the heart. V5 and V6 are over the left side of the heart. But if you watch any Ring commercials or anything like that, you see how you can adjust your camera a little bit like this. So it doesn't just look straightforward, it looks off a little bit too, okay, to the sides. So V1 through V4 are anterior towards the front of the heart, right? V1 and V2 are also right lateral. Okay? Now, we have an arrow, like a pointer, to represent where depolarization is moving. You go, I thought you said axis. I did. But the pointer is called a vector, V-E-C-T-O-R. So the direction that depolarization is moving, downward to the left, is axis. If I point, it went that way. Okay, that's a vector, V-E-C-T-O-R. And the thicker the chamber of the heart, the more vectors. Now think about this. If you had an infarct, what would happen? Well, one thing that's going to happen is the cells in that area are going to die. So it becomes what? Another word for the death is infarct. Another word for death is necrotic. What's that mean? They don't have any more mechanical cells. Okay. They don't have any electrical cells in that area. So what does that mean? They're not going to depolarize and they're not going to contract. So what happens? Axis gets pulled off to the other side because where there's more vectors, where there's more arrows going through a thick muscle, right? More axis is deviated or pulled towards that side. Where there is none because of myocardial infarction or necrosis, what happens? It shifts. Axis points towards hypertrophy. Another way you can think of that is more vectors. It points away from infarct. Axis points towards hypertrophy. It points away from infarct. Okay? Now, let me stop this for just a second. Okay, you probably didn't know we were going to do this, but what can I tell you? We're back in grade school. Maybe first, second grade, somewhere in there. I forget. And I got a call from an elementary school a while back, and they said, we'd like you to come in and teach, first grade. And all right, man, that should be no problem here. So I walked in first day, and that's why I said, it's over here somewhere. I said, I'd like you to get out some paper right now, something to write with, a pen and pencil. I'll give you an hour. I'd like to see you to write 2 pages of your summer vacation. One kid raised his hand and goes, Mr. White? Mm-hmm. You have a question already? I mean, we haven't started yet. Yeah, I do. We don't know how to write. I said, did I say write? No. I meant draw a picture of your summer vacation. Well, hello. Once again, I'm not too intelligent. All right, so I want you to play like right now that there is a sphere kind of over your heart, over the center of your chest. You got it. Play it here. Best I can do. If you divide the sphere in half, right in half, kind of like a mid-sagittal line in half, you got what? You got the right side and the left side, right? All right. Then I want you to take another line and draw it like this. So you end up with what? 4 quadrants. Okay. Now let's go back to the first line, mid-sagittal, straight down the center. Yeah. If you take lead one is pointing from your right arm over to what? The left arm. Okay. So if you go from the right arm to the left arm like this, okay, the right arm is negative, the left arm is positive. Remember, you got a line down the center of it. The right arm is negative, the left arm is positive. So let's do this. The right half of the circle, the whole right half, okay, this side, is negative. The left side is positive. So you got a little pin here, sitting like that. And I say, the left is positive. You go like that. The right is positive. Kind of hard to do, but you get the idea. You go like this. Okay. Now, got another line drawn, right? Let's take AVF. Now, what did I just tell you about? Lead one. Right arm, negative, left arm, positive. This whole side of the circle, negative, this whole side of the circle, positive. And we're going to go like this. Okay. And we're going to go to lead AVF. The bottom, AVF, augmented voltage foot, usually we're talking about the left foot, we talk about AVF. The right foot, yes, we put little stickers on, but it's just to stabilize the tracing. Okay. So AVF is positive, your left foot is positive, the top half is negative. So the top half of the circle is negative, the bottom half of the circle is positive. Everybody with me? It's good. So you go, well, how do I find out? Well, you look at lead one and you look at AVF. If lead one on the right arm is mostly negative, then the side of the circle is negative. If the left arm is positive, then the side of the circle is positive. And you draw another line like this. Get it? Okay. We're doing to AVF, augmented voltage foot. The left foot is positive, yeah. So the bottom half of the circle is positive. The top half is what? Negative. All right, now, I know it's going to be hard to figure out. but scooch up. That's a word my dad used to use. Scooch. Not sure. But anyway, you get the idea here. You got 4 quadrants. Okay. This quadrant, hopefully you can see it. This quadrant right here, I'm looking in a kind of a mirror again, so it's hard for me to see. Okay. Is what? Normal. So write the normal in here. Normal. The lower left is normal. That's where axis should be pointing. Well, normal. Things are normal. Yeah. Up here, this quadrant in the upper left, okay, right here, is LAD, left axis deviation. LAD, left axis deviation. Just put LAD. Down here, lower right F, yeah, is RAD, right axis deviation. Up here, yeah, is ERAD, extreme right axis deviation. Still with me? Good. How many quadrants we got? 4. Where do we want the normal axis? Now, when I say normal axis, what is the direction the depolarization is moving in? But what did I tell you earlier? It's represented by an arrow called a, you can almost hear it, vector. Okay? And guess what? The tail of the vector is the SA node. The tail of the vector is the SA node. So you got a long stick pointing out with a little pointer, like an arrow, and the tail of the node way up here is the AV node. Okay? So we're going to move this arrow wherever we think axis is, right? So let's try a couple things. I'm almost afraid to, but we'll try. All right, so you're sitting like this. This little light of mine. Yeah, okay. Sitting like this. And I go, 1 is your right arm is negative, your left arm is positive. And your pointer's pointing up towards Pluto or something, but your right arm is negative, your left arm is positive. So what are you going to do? You're going to go like this. What if I said the right arm is positive, the left arm is negative? You're going to go like this. Okay? You're just pointing off to one side of the circle or the other. Okay? All right, here we go again. So let's just play them like this. Okay? Right arm is, or left arm is positive, right arm is negative. With me? Okay. Now I say this. AVF is positive. All right, you're going down towards your foot. Where are you? Normal axis. Okay, we're starting out again. Stay with me. Okay. Now, your right arm, lead 1, right side, is negative. Negative. Okay. Mostly below the baseline. When I say positive, mostly above the isoelectric line. When I say negative, mostly below. Okay. Well, watch this. Your right arm is negative. In other words, the strep is mostly above the baseline. So you're going to point off like that. Well, that's positive, but you get the idea. Okay. Right arm should be negative, left arm positive. Okay, so what? Lead 1. Okay. Mostly what? Negative, below the baseline. Okay. Point off like this. Okay. AVF, positive. Where are you? Right axis deviation. Okay, here we go. We're going to start out again. Ready? Probably should get a paper plate if you have problems with this before you call me. All right. Draw 4 quadrants. All right, now watch. Here we go. Lead 1 is mostly positive. What's that mean? Above the baseline. AVF is negative. Where are you? Left axis deviation. You're in this little quadrant. There's only 4 quadrants. Okay. Here we go. There's fun in it. Not really, but whatever. Okay. Lead 1 is mostly negative. I'm trying to look at it. Extreme right axis. Okay. Lead 1 is mostly negative. And then, I gotta kind of look over, sorry guys. And then AVF is mostly negative. So if lead 1 is mostly negative, you know, below the baseline, and AVF is mostly negative, where are you? Extreme right axis deviation. And what are you doing? You're taking the vector and just moving it in the quadrant it should be. Okay, step further. Okay. So you're always looking at the strip. And you're going, is it mostly above or below the baseline? If it's above, it's positive. If it's below, it's negative. Hello. All right. And don't worry, if this doesn't make sense, pour yourself a large adult beverage. It begins making a lot of sense. I just have a friend, he sit out on his porch, have a beer, you know, after he drank a couple of cases, I don't know. He'd go, now I'm beginning to see the real meaning of life. I knew it was time to go home, you know. He checked out about 55 minutes ago, whatever. Okay. All right, now, so you find the mean QRS vector. Okay. The mean QRS vector points towards hypertrophy, but not in the normal. Normal is normal. Points towards hypertrophy, like left axis deviation or right axis deviation or extreme right axis deviation. It always like a pointer. It points towards hypertrophy, enlargement of the muscle of the wall. You have the heart. Okay. But it points away from infarct, death. Now, why would that be? Well, think about it. What's the two words? Infarct and necrosis. The tissue's dead, which means what? The vectors are wiped out. There is no vectors there anymore. And so what's going to happen? Axis is going to be pulled in the opposite direction. Okay. Make sense? Yeah. If normal got wiped out, I'm just guessing, that's just an example, then axis might be pulled over here. Where? Right axis deviation. Okay. So watch. Axis points towards hypertrophy and away from infarct. It points towards hypertrophy and away from infarct. Now, let's go over here. We're on the left. One of the other things you may be asked to do, who knows when, I'm thinking of June 10th maybe, or during one of these quizzes, you're going to maybe be asked to find degrees axis. In other words, once you're in one of the quadrants, one of the four, right, normal, okay, left axis deviation, right axis deviation, or extreme right axis deviation. Once you're in one of those quadrants, what is the degrees axis that the vector is pointing to? Now, this is going to be a little bit hard, but I'm going to try to do it. We start off with right over here, right here. This is 0 degrees. Okay? And we go down to 90 degrees at the bottom. 0 to 90 is normal. Why did I tell you that? I have no idea. Okay, watch. Now, we have the limb leads dividing the circle, cutting it. You can kind of see them here. Okay? Now watch. This is lead 1. Right here is lead 1. Okay, it starts at 0 degrees, goes all the way across here to 180 degrees. 0 to 180. This is 180 right here. And look, lead 1. I put it right by there. 0, lead 1, 180, lead 1. Okay? All right. Now, right down here is AVR, augmented voltage right arm. This is at 30 degrees. because if we go between every one of these are 30-degree increments, 30 degrees. So if we go from 0 to AVR, that's 30 degrees. So AVF is at 30 degrees. And AVF, look, it cuts right through like this. Okay. Here is lead 2, right here, right next to AVF. Okay, here's AVF. Here's lead 2. Lead 2 is at, remember I said if you go between something, it's another 30 degrees. So if you go between 30 degrees and the next one, it's 60 degrees. Okay, that's lead 2. If we go between 2 and AVF, another 30 onto 60, that's 90 degrees. Okay. 1 is at 0. 0. AVF, I'm sorry, AVR is at 30, looking upside down again. AVR, 30 degrees. Lead 2, 60 degrees. Lead AVF, 90 degrees. We always add 30. Okay. Now we're moving over. We're going from AVF to lead 3. Lead 3 is 180. We keep adding 30, okay, for now. I say 130, 120. I'm looking, again, I apologize, upside down. So if we go from AVF, 90, to lead 3, we add 30 to 90, 120. Lead 3, 120. If we go from lead 3 to AVL, 150 on AVL. Okay. If we go back up here to the other end of lead 1, it's 180. 30 and 150, 180. All right. 1 is at where? 0. Lead 1. 2, AVF is at 30 degrees. Keep adding 30 for now. And another 30, we get lead 2 at 60 degrees. We add another 30, we get AVF at 90 degrees, right at the bottom. We go up a little bit, we get lead 3 at 120. We go up a little bit, we get AVL at 150. We go up a little bit, we get lead 1 way over here on the right side at 180. With me? Good. Now remember, the top of the circle is negative. The bottom half of the circle is positive. Okay? So we're at 180, right? Okay. Now these weren't drawn out equal pieces of pie, but watch. If we're at 180, now we subtract because the top half of the circle is negative. So if we're 180, what do? We subtract 30. So lead 1 at 180 over here on the right. We go up to AVF. This is negative 150. We're subtracting 30 now. Anytime in the top half of the circle, we're subtracting. Okay. We go to lead 2. That's at negative 120. We go to AVF. That's at negative 90. We go to lead 3 over here. That's at negative 60. We go to AVL. That's at negative 30. And then what do we draw back to? 0. I know, it takes a little bit of time to think about. Get a picture on your phone if your book doesn't give you one, your workbook. Whatever. All right, now, ready? Okay. In order to find out which quadrant I'm in, remember there's only 4 quadrants. Okay. In order to find out which quadrant I'm in, I always do this. I always, number 1, look at lead 1. Is it mostly above or below the baseline? If it's mostly below the baseline, it's a negative deflection. If it's above the baseline, it's positive. Okay, lead 1 is mostly positive. Why? Because this half of the circle is positive. Okay. Lead 1 is mostly negative. Okay. 2 choices there. It's above my head, but whatever. Okay. Lead 1 is mostly positive. AVF, I always look at 1 in AVF to find out which quadrant you're in. Lead 1 in AVF. AVF is positive. Where are you? Normal. Lead 1 is positive. AVF is mostly negative. Upper half of the circle is negative, bottom half of the circle is... So where am I? Left axis deviation. You got to get the quadrant first by looking at 1 in AVF. All right, here we go. 1 is... Which one? 1 is negative. AVF is positive. Where are you? Right axis deviation. Find the quadrant first. 1 is negative. AVF is negative. Where are you? Extreme right axis deviation. All right, here we go. Now, the next thing is, once you found where the mean QRS vector is, what's the mean QRS vector? The tail is the AV node, and it's like an arrow, like a pointer. It's telling you which quadrant it's in. It's just pointing it towards that thing, like you're taking an arrow, and you're pointing it to one of those 4 quadrants, okay? All right, here we go. Once you find out where the mean QRS vector is, you then need to find degrees axis. Degrees. Now, it's not as difficult as you think. Watch. 1 is positive. AVF is positive. Where am I? I'm in normal. Now I find degrees axis. Here's how you do it. I'm going to put this down for just a second. Okay. Here's how you do it. You come to find degrees axis. Once you find out where the arrow is pointing, which quadrant, 1 of 4, you come 90 degrees. Write that down. I'll go to flow. You come 90 degrees off the most isoelectric lead. Stop right there. What runs down the center of your EKG? A baseline. What's another name for it? Isoelectric line. What's that mean? Well, it means you can get stuff on top of the line, which is positive, and stuff on the bottom of the line, which is negative. But it also means that what if you have a complex on an EKG, you're looking at it, and it's as much positive above the baseline as it is negative below the baseline? It's the most isoelectric lead. So if you look at how much positive above the baseline, how much negative below, just a quick glance at it. Below the baseline, that's the most isoelectric. You come 90 degrees off that lead toward the quadrant that the mean QRS vector was in. I know it's a lot, but watch. We'll go back over. 1 is positive. AVF is positive. Where am I? I'm in normal. I'm somewhere between 0 and 90 degrees in normal quadrant, right? Now what did I tell you? Find the most isoelectric lead. Find the lead that has as much above the baseline as it is below the baseline. Come 90 degrees off that lead towards the quadrant that the mean QRS vector is in. Okay, now I'm in normal. I don't know what the degree is yet, but I find the most isoelectric lead. Let me come over here and look at one. Let's say lead 3 is isoelectric. Okay. What is lead 3 at? 120. 120 right here. Okay. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go backwards. Remember, between 2 lines is 30 degrees. 30, 60, 90. Where am I? AVF is at 30 degrees. Okay. I'll do it again. 1 is positive. AVF is positive. I'm somewhere in this normal circle, right? What is this? The mean QRS vector, whose tail is the AV node right there in the center, and who's pointing at her like an arrow. But I don't know the degrees. Find the most isoelectric lead. Come 30 degrees off of that towards this. Okay? So watch this. Okay. If I say to you, okay, we're at AVR down here, but it doesn't make any difference. I'm somewhere in here between 0 and 90 degrees. Okay. Somewhere in this normal axis line. Let's say I said AVF is isoelectric. Now AVF's way down here. Okay. 30, 60, 90. I'm at lead 1 at 0 degrees. Okay. 1 is negative. AVF is positive. Where am I? Right axis deviation. Somewhere, but I don't know where. Okay. Do what? Find the most isoelectric lead of all 6 of the limb leads. Which one is mostly above the baseline and below the baseline? Come 30 degrees off that lead towards this quadrant. Okay? Let's just say that 1 is isoelectric. I'm somewhere in here, I don't know where yet. Right? I'm in right axis deviation. Lead 1 is isoelectric. It's as much above the baseline as it is below. Well, 1 is up here at 180 degrees. Well, watch, 30, 60, 90. Where am I? AVF, 90 degrees. Okay? I'm at 90 degrees. Okay. Does that make sense? Hopefully. All right. Okay, I'm going to put on pause here for a second. We're going to go forward. Okay, now I'm looking over the actual quiz. Am I going to give you the questions? No. Am I going to tell you the general area where to find the Easter egg? Yes. All right. What is axis? The direction the depolarization is moving. There could be a question here. What is vector? An arrow that represents, they went that way, the direction an axis is pointing. Okay. And which quadrant it's in. How many quadrants? 4. Take a paper plate, divide it in 4 parts. Okay. What good is it? Axis points towards hypertrophy, enlargement of the muscle, the myocardium, and away from what? Infarct. Why is it point away from infarct? Because the tissue's dead. You just wiped out the vectors. Okay. Axis is always pulled towards where's the greater and the longest vectors. Axis is always pulled towards where there's the greatest and longest vector. If that area has been wiped out because you had a myocardial infarction, or the area is necrotic, which means absolutely the same thing, it's dead. Okay? Then axis is pulled away from it. Axis points towards hypertrophy and away from infarct. Okay? So, sounds like 2 questions to me. It's kind of like a nice little pointer in the heart. Kind of nice to know, huh? Not really? Well, whatever. Have some more wine. Just let me know. Did I say wine? No. I said Nestle. Okay. Nestle's is hopefully a chocolate drink. I think they still have it around. The commercial used to be this: Nestle's makes the very best chocolate. I know I need to take some more Prozac. Whatever. Sounds like 4 questions to me. I've already given the answers for. I'm looking at a question that I wrote, so it doesn't seem really right. Let me look at it again. Okay. Now, if things are normal, this is going to sound ridiculous, then things are normal, right? So if I ask you a question and I go, where is the mean QRS vector, then hopefully things would be normal. All right. Usually. Maybe I forgot to add a word, but you're getting the idea there. Okay, hold on. You know, once again, if I don't correct this, which I'm going to do, but I'm just saying, if I don't, and I say, where is this vector or something like that, you can choose the word normal. Okay, if you're going, well, what do you mean, where is it? I don't know where it is. Okay. All right. Okay, probably questions on the quadrants. What are they? Questions on top half of the circle versus bottom half of the circle. Inferior versus superior, above. Again, I like to think of superior as the upper half, inferior the lower half, but that's just me. You know, if you come up and go above and below, I'm going to go above and below what? Okay. I'm just looking over the questions to make sure they make sense. Okay, remember I told you if you have deflections above the isoelectric line, the height of them, and below the isoelectric line, the depth of them, if they equal in height and depth above that line, they are what? Isoelectric. Okay. I'll make another correction here. So, you know, P waves are, you know, in P as in Paul, are usually positive deflected, like in lead 2 and so forth like that. So what I'm saying is that the main thing go off here about height and depth above the isoelectric line is QRS complex. Okay. You know, if the QRS looks as much above it as below the isoelectric line, then it's isoelectric. Okay. Now, we talked about the right and the left ventricle being hypertrophied, enlarged, the myocardium, enlargement of the wall. All right. But what if we're looking at the atrium? Another story. You know, the upper chambers of the heart, the right and the left atrium. For right and left atrial hypertrophy, you're to look at V1. V1. Okay. Which is one of the what? Chest leads. V1. We've been talking about the limb lead so far, but the chest leads, V1, for atrial hypertrophy. And what you're to look for is a wave that kind of looks like, let me see if I can show this a little bit. Kind of looks like this. Now here's the isoelectric line, and look, you got a bump above it and you got a bump below it. Okay? Well, the first bump above it is called the initial phase. The first bump is above it is called the initial phase. The bump below the isoelectric line is called the terminal phase. And what is this whole thing referred to as? A diphasic P wave. Diphasic P wave. There. Diphasic. D-I-P-H-A-I-C. Diphasic. What's di mean? Two. Two phases. The one above the baseline is called the initial phase. The one below the baseline is called the terminal phase. And what are we doing here? We're looking for atrial hypertrophy, enlargement of the myocardium in one of the atria. I'm going to try to say this to you simple. Resolving quiz 9. If the initial phase is bigger or taller or longer, okay, the bump, than the terminal phase, there's right atrial hypertrophy. If the terminal phase is bigger or longer than the initial phase, then there's left atrial hypertrophy. And you know what I do to remember that? It's kind of crazy, but this is what I do. Take a look. This bottom picture, hopefully you can see it. Okay. Bottom, look at the heart. Yeah. Okay, take a look. This is the right atrium, initial phase. This is the, well, supposed to be the left atrium, but you're getting the idea here. Here, let's do it another way. Drawing backwards is not one of my fortes, but you're kind of getting the idea. Trying to make it a little bit bigger. All right. Up here, your atrium. Yeah. Initial phase, right atrium. Terminal phase in the left atrium. If the initial phase is bigger, longer, then you have right atrial hypertrophy. If the terminal phase is bigger, longer, then you have left atrial hypertrophy. Okay? Where do you look? V1, that's one of the chest leads, right? Okay. Now somebody called me yesterday and said, look, how many leads are we doing? What, on an EKG normally? 12. Yeah, but there's only 10. No, don't go back to this. Okay. There's 10 stickers called electrodes. They're like an antenna or a cell thing that you have sitting on your roof. Okay. What do? They pick up the information from where? From your heart. Because you know what? It goes through your skin, it goes out. Yeah. It's an electrode. What's attached to an electrode? A lead wire. Where do the lead wires go? A big cable that looks like this. And all the lead wires are labeled RA, right arm, LA. LA is about 90 miles, left arm, LL, left leg, RA, well, you get the idea. All right. We're going to say RL, right leg, yeah. Okay. They're all labeled, even V1s, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6. Be very careful that you do not reverse leads. Otherwise, you've got to throw the whole doggone thing away. No, shred it first, throw it away. Okay. Why? Because it doesn't make any sense. And because it can turn out to look like there's pathology, disease, ology, study of disease, pathology, when there's really not. How's the doctor supposed to know that? He doesn't in a lot of cases. You just reverse leads. So before you actually hit that thing on run, check your leads. Make sure they're in order. Okay, I'm going to turn this off for a second. I'm going to come back with a second quiz. This is quiz 9. I'm now going to do quiz 10. Okay, guys. Once again, good afternoon. This is quiz 10, okay, that we're talking about. And primarily we're talking about circulation, perfusion, supply of blood to the heart. So primarily we're talking about coronary arteries. And coronary arteries surround the heart and they perfuse it or supply it with blood and oxygen. Okay? The coronary arteries have two major ones. The right and the left coronary artery. Okay? And the left coronary artery bifurcates or splits. It splits into the circumflex and it splits into the LAD, the left anterior descending. Okay, you have two major coronaries, right and left. The right coronary artery is obviously on the right side. but it comes around the back of the right ventricle to the left ventricle. The left coronary artery is very short. It splits. It splits into the LAD, the left anterior descending, which goes down the front part of the heart, anterior, front, and it splits into the circumflex, which goes around the side of the left ventricle or lateral. Okay. Now, anything that blocks or narrows those coronary arteries starts arrhythmia. Okay? You want to be aware of that. But usually we're talking about infarct and necrosis, same word, death. Why? Because you gotta block it. You have a thrombosis. Thrombo, blood, osis is, well, a thrombus is actually a blood clot. Thrombus is a blood clot. Osis is an abnormal condition of the blood clot. You want blood clots, but you don't. You get them in the brain, what do you get? Stroke. You get them in the heart, what do you get? An MI, myocardial infarction. So if we say the RCA, we're not talking about a record. Okay? We're talking about the right coronary artery. We talk about the LCA, the left coronary artery. Don't forget the LCA bifurcates or splits. Splits into the LAD, left anterior descending, goes right down the front part of your heart, anterior. And the circumflex, which goes lateral to the side of the left ventricle and in the back. Usually when we talk about major problems of the heart, we refer to major problems of the left ventricle, electrical problems, necrotic areas, whatever. But we usually primarily pick on the left ventricle. Why? Because when that left ventricle contracts, it forces oxygenated blood out to all the cells, the tissues, and the organs of the entire body. It's involved with something called systemic circulation. What's systemic? The body as a whole. Okay. Every time you feel a pulse, you're feeling left ventricular contraction. Okay. Now, if we talk about the base of the left ventricle, which is kind of like the area that it's sitting on, the diaphragmatic area, it gets its blood supply, okay, from the right or left coronary, depending on which one is dominant, which one's mostly on that side. Now, if we take the RCA, the right coronary artery, it supplies the SA node, pretty important area to supply, right? Sinoatrial node, the AV node, the atrioventricular node, and the bundle of His. Let me say that again. SA node, the AV node, and the bundle of His is supplied, right, by the right coronary. Okay, now if we say there's been a left bundle branch block, an LBBB, left bundle branch block, right? How are you going to know a bundle branch block? Remember? You have those two mountain peaks that sit on the top or the bottom of the QRS, right? And that's a bundle branch block. What does that do? It widens the QRS. Why? Because, remember, there's two bundle branches, okay? Right and left, right? The bundle branch that is not blocked is going to fire first. And what do we call that? R. The bundle branch that is delayed or blocked, we call that R prime. Okay. So every time the ventricle fires, it fires off a QRS. But this is like you have a QRS here, like a V, inverted V above the baseline, and another one just over a little bit, and so you have these two mountain peaks sitting on top. And bundle branch blocks usually do what? They widen the QRS. One fires before the other. The ventricles what normally? Fire simultaneously together. So you don't see these two little mountain peaks. Okay, so there's simultaneous contraction of the ventricles. I'm looking just to make sure that I've covered what I want to cover. Okay, so if we have a bundle branch block, and the reason we got it is because of an infarct and a diminished blood supply to one of its divisions. Remember the right bundle branch? When we say bundle, it's just a bundle of Purkinje fibers. Okay? And we have the left bundle branch, but the left bundle branch bifurcates or divides too. It divides into the anterior fascicle. A fascicle is just a bundle of Purkinje fibers. Okay, so it divides into the anterior fascicle and the posterior fascicle. Let me say that again. The right bundle branch, just a dip down, right? No division. The left bundle branch splits, bifurcates into anterior and posterior fascicles. And if one of those are blocked, you end up with something called hemi. Hemi, half. Hemi blocks, half of a block. Meaning what? Meaning either the anterior fascicle is blocked or the posterior. Okay, electrolytes, calcium, sodium, potassium. They're very important, extremely. Sodium is the predominant intracellular, within, cellular electrolyte. All right, let me restart. Potassium is the dominant intracellular electrolyte. Sodium is the predominant extracellular electrolyte. Now, if you're normally looking at potassium, 3.5 to 5.5. Some books say only 3 to 5. Milli-equivalents per liter, MEQ per L. That's normal. So either 3 to 5 or 3.5 to 5.5 is normal potassium. But don't give me this stuff about you take a banana every day. Okay. You know the most predominant, I mentioned it earlier, but I forgot to throw it in there when I talked about urinating in the other lecture. Yeah. The most predominant diuretic is Lasix, Lasix. But it doesn't spare potassium. You pee it away. So guess what? You become hypokalemic. Okay. Hypo, below. Kali, potassium. Emia, blood. Or emic, whatever you want to say. Okay. Hypokalemic is low potassium. And a lot of people go, well, I take banana. You'd have to take 40 inches of banana every day on your cereal in order to get enough potassium to compensate for the diuretic, the Lasix we're giving you. Okay. So Lasix does not spare potassium. Aldactone does, but Lasix does not. Which means what? Usually when we're giving you Lasix and you're peeing out a lot every day, yeah, to get rid of a lot of this fluid, like in congestive heart failure, okay, or hypertension, high blood pressure, okay, we give you a potassium supplement. A lot of people don't take it because they say they eat a banana. Oh my gosh. And what can they end up with? Cardiac dysrhythmias. Now, if they take too much of it, they can be what? Hyperkalemic. Okay. Hyper, above, excessive. One medical term class that I don't care for a lot, but you know what? Some people learn this way. They have some kitty cats sitting on a church roof. Thought I'd throw this in. I'm not going to ask a question. And they're meowing. Meow, meow. They have a high purr. Meow. Why? Because they're above or excessive, whatever. That's the classic. Kitty cat's on a church word. All right, so you're hyperkalemic. Can you notice that on EKG or even hypo? Yes. Hyper, let me just throw this in real quick, is you look at P waves and the T wave. The P waves are kind of flat, the T waves are kind of peaked. P waves are kind of flat, the T waves are kind of peaked with what? Hyperkalemia. The thing I like about this class, they have another word. I heard people studying one day for this, and they go, truck, cat. I'm going, what are you guys doing? We're studying for a medical term with cat and mouse or whatever they're coming up with. Okay. Now, another thing, I'm just looking, make sure I hit them all. Digitalis. What's another name for it? A cardiac glycoside. What's it mean? Negative chronotropic. It's going to time. It's going to slow the heart down. And positive inotropic. What's it going to do? It's going to cause a greater force of contraction. And we give DIG in certain cardiac situations like congestive heart failure. Another thing that you might see on the test that I may have talked about or may not have. Capture beads. Capture. Like you capture something? Yeah. Capture beats are usually 2 PVCs in a row. 2 premature ventricular contractions in a row. You get 2 of them together, here and there. Maybe spaced throughout the strip. Those are called capture beats. The other thing to look for PVCs are they unifocal or multifocal? You go, what does that mean? If they're unifocal, they look alike. Meaning what? They come from the same place. If they're multifocal, they look different. They come from different ectopic foci, pacemakers, in the ventricle. Now, why did I tell you that? Multifocal PVCs are a step away from VFib, ventricular fibrillation. Because that's what VFib almost looks like, stretching a little bit, but looks, like a bunch of peaks and valleys, no identifiable waves. It looks like you're shaking. Really bad Parkinson's, and you're trying to draw some, PVCs, right? But it comes out like VFib. So VFib is just a bunch of multifocal, it's a bunch of PVCs firing off at once. And what? There's no contraction. Why? Heart didn't know what to respond to. There's a little here, a little here, a little here. Fib, remember there's 2 types in the heart. There's atrial and ventricular. Both atrial and ventricular have been likened to what's called a bag of worms. I mean, it's looking at a bag, a little shaking here, a little shaking. There's no one coordination coming out. There's multiple ones all over the place. And because in VFib there's multiple ones, there is no ventricular contraction. You're dead. All right. Guys, God bless. Have a nice evening. I'm going to see you guys at 6 o'clock today. 6 o'clock. Okay. This is the last Wednesday in May, 6 p.m. So show up. Don't forget to call me. Talk to me individually just for a couple of minutes. Okay, maybe I'm lonely. I don't know. Have a good day. All right? Bye. Okay. Got to tell you something before I say goodbye. So hopefully you don't hang up before I say goodbye. Everything that I gave today on the quizzes, including the captures, are fair game. Multifocal versus unifocal, fair game on the final. Everything that I've given you before, Fair game. So what did I talk about today? Coronary blood flow primarily. Axis. Everything. There's 20 questions there, guys. It's all fair game. Maybe 19 with the capture thing, but you're getting the idea. Okay. So what do you study for the final? Everything that I gave you on the midterm. Not that it's all going to be there, but there's 20 questions that I gave you today on quizzes. That could be there. All right. Okay. See you tonight, 6 o'clock. Sun goes down.